Hello and welcome to the Echo Chamber podcast. My name is Tony Groves and today we're asserting our democratic right to protest, lads. As always, I'm joined by my co-host and a suspect in several ongoing investigations, Martin McMahon.
How you doing, Tony?
What's with the ankle bracelet, Martin? Is that new or is that...
Yeah, they just want to see where I'm going because I keep leaving the phone behind.
As always, more importantly, we're delighted to be joined at the Tortoise Shack by Unite Trade Union leader, one of the founders of the Home Sweet Home movement and the man most likely to be described by lazy journalists as firebrand, Brendan Ogle.
That's the nicest thing to say about him.
Yeah, well, Brendan, I do find that's it's that the old tropes where it's always looking for a journalist
Maverick.
Yeah.
I like Maverick.
Torn in the side of the establishment.
Yeah, holding the country to ransom.
Listen, Brett, thanks for coming on.
Right.
It is interesting though that we did mention one of the founders of Home Sweet Home because we've been speaking on the podcast for a number of months now around homelessness and the crisis. And I remember you sat down with the minister at the time, Simon Coveney, and he made all sorts of assurances.
Sure did.
And then he, after a few months, I think I'm right in saying, he just stopped attending the weekly meetings that were happening. If you remember, he started, he had been good in attending these things with people from the Simon community, people from yourselves, and all of a sudden, he just can't make this one. He can't make the next one. And then he threw his hat in the ring for the Fine Gael leadership, and then he was out the gap as soon as he could. Since then, things have gotten steadily worse. The crisis is actually, it is a crisis. It's an emergency, but we won't say that because then we'd have to acknowledge it and do something and act to defend our citizens. Give us your thoughts, Brendan.
Oh, I love Simon. It's 15 months now since Apollo House, and we met Simon and people some interesting people on his side of the table. Dublin City Council, Eileen Sweeney, who's kind of hit the headlines once or twice since then. Brendan Kenny, Pat Doyle from the Peter McVerry Trust was sitting across the table with the minister, looking at us. Interesting dynamics, you know. You are right. Actually, you raised a crisis/emergency thing.
That's important, actually.
Yeah, it is. I used the word emergency, and we had I longed at 3 o'clock till about midnight or something. We had a long meeting one Friday with Simon Coveney and his team, and that became a discussion. Dave Gibney was with us there from Mandate Trade Union, and him particularly kind of got stuck into Simon over this. You know, why are you not calling this an emergency? This is clearly an emergency. And as you say, Tony, it's worse now than it was then. And in the room, the minister had no problem calling it an emergency. No, it is an emergency. Oh, it's an emergency. No, we accept it's an emergency. No, we're treating it as an emergency. No, look, we've got a policy. There it is in the middle of the table. It's an emergency. But we said, okay, so RTE are out there. Newspapers are out there on the steps. Can you acknowledge publicly it's an emergency? Well, I don't need to. I've kind of said it's an emergency, and you guys know it's an emergency, and we all in this room know it's an emergency. But he wouldn't, and they haven't, and they won't.
And do you know why?
Well, I believe it's to do with that. Look, they're the best boys in the class in the European Union. You know,
it is. It boils down to that if you declare an emergency, there's nothing in EU law that stops you acting to the benefit of protecting your citizens, and you can actually circumvent the GDP to debt ratio rules. So if they declared an emergency, we'd be able to spend money on a social housing budget, or we'd be able to go outside and seek external funding at record low interest rates, by the way, folks. Yeah. We could still do all of that, but we would have to then run the risk of saying, we didn't fix the debt to GDP, which is more important to a certain ideology. And that's where the word emergency gets dropped from the vernacular.
And it's interesting. More and more people are using it. I see some of the volunteers are using it, and some of the charities are now using it routinely enough. The government, for the reasons as you say, Tony, won't use it. And you know, it's becoming worse. There was actually a movie, Shelter Me, Apollo House, that premiered in New York there last Saturday night, directed by Zara Mahood and Jim Sheridan. And some people probably seen the TV3 version of that about this time last year. Well, it's a build on from that, where it's looking at the situation a year on, and what the government delivered and what they didn't deliver, and what promises were were broken and what ones were kept. None of them were kept. So that bit of the film is very short. So hopefully Irish viewers will get to see that soon. And it's really, you can be annoyed, you can be down about it, you can be sad about it. I heard you just using when you were talking there, Tony, about social housing. I hate that as well.
Yeah.
We need public housing. It's an emergency. Let's get the language right. It's an emergency. It's not a crisis. So stop calling it a crisis. Everybody listening, stop calling it a crisis. And we don't need social housing. We need public housing. So, the government are a million miles away from that. And that doesn't surprise me.
But the government are a million miles, and we know this. We see it, and it's very obvious to everybody who's looking in that there's no intention in fixing this, that this suits them the way it is, this is policy, this is not accidental, this is designed to happen. That's government. But Fine Gael voters and the sons and daughters of Fine Gael voters, the guards, the teachers, the nurses, these are the people now locked out. So no matter that the government doesn't care, it doesn't matter, it's the people who vote for them. How do we break down that barrier and show them that it's all the one thing, and that as long as they keep voting Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, this is what you're going to end up with?
Well, what does it take to govern Ireland today in terms of being elected?
36% of the election.
19. Fine Gael have been in government since 2011. And in election 2016, they got 19% of the available votes.
The available votes, yeah.
People kind of look at how can that be? That is the case. 35% didn't vote at all. So if you think about that, almost twice as many didn't vote as voted for the party who have led government.
But that's always been the case. The non-voters are the biggest demographic.
So we don't speak about that. You don't see coverage. Like it's not, just over in Belgium, like kind of over that little bit of water there. They have compulsory voting, and you can, and presumably you can be prosecuted if you don't vote. Now that doesn't actually happen. I've spoken to people about it. It doesn't actually happen, but people do vote. So people are losing out. My view of this is very, very simple. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael in particular represent the property and landlord class, Fine Gael in particular. So they only appeal to, and only want to appeal to that class. And that's about 25 to 30%. So that's what they're targeting. So if anybody's out there, some of us think and like to think that we're kind of middle class because we went to college, we've got a degree or something. It's, some people who are working in the public service, maybe in good jobs, see themselves, depending on where they live, or used to see themselves 10 years ago anyway, as kind of middle class. No, you're not. You're not what Fine Gael are pitching their policies at. You're just someone that got a degree because your mother and your father presumably worked very, very hard and got you through college and all that sort of stuff. That's what you are. So Fine Gael are actually targeting their policies at the property and landlord class. And that's who they represent. No, I don't have a problem with that, by the way. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. In any democracy, you're going to have parties that are pitched at a particular demographic. What I have a problem with is the rest of it. What I have the problem with is the other 70%, or 80%, the people who don't have property, who are just trying to live from week to week, who are just trying to eke out an existence for them and their children. Who's appealing to them?
Well, I always think that with parties, if parties label themselves by the income group that they're going for, so Fine Gael is your 75 plus party, Fianna Fáil is your, we'll say, 60 plus party, and then you come down the line, and this is the demographic. But down here where most people live, income in around 26,000 is the median income.
I think the average income, actually, Martin, is there's a difference in the average and the median. So we're somewhere between 26.5 to 32 is in that.
But who specifically?
Low 30s.
Yeah.
It's who specifically for them. And what you were saying about middle class, the only definition of class in Ireland, or the only visible definition of class in Ireland, is where you live. It's the only visible. So you could buy your way into middle class.
Well, people think to do it.
Yeah, well, this is the sense of it here. But now, middle class is no longer where you can buy. Middle class, you are middle class if you can walk into a bank and get a loan. That's what makes you middle class. If you can't do that,
that's
you're not middle
but
class.
if you talk about we talk about the 7 signs of deprivation. Kids going to school hungry. How long. What their situation is, left alone.
2 pairs of shoes.
Yeah. These basic.
Diet.
It's the exact same sort of idea when you think about this. But the problem we have here in Ireland is we're not honest about that. Because if you think only a couple of months ago Trump brought in his tax cut, and the media piled up on both sides. Well done, Donald. You got a big tax cut, breaks for, and the other side of the media piled in and said tax breaks for the rich. And you would call that kind of more honest reporting. Whereas what you've said now is, Fine Gael want to appeal to their base. Okay? But you don't hear that because people say, no, Fine Gael, they're making these decisions and they're managing the economy. And no one actually says, no, that's just a vote getting mechanism because that's what it is. It's a transfer of housing assistance payments to private landlords to buy votes as opposed to providing public housing and converting that into, and actually maybe appealing to that voter who currently wouldn't look at Fine Gael because they think that, and rightly so, but we don't actually, the demarcation isn't clear, and that's as much a fault of the left as it is of the right.
Very much so. As I said, while I disagree vehemently with Fine Gael's ideology, and what they represent doesn't appeal to me. I understand it. I get it. I kind of grudgingly respect it. That's what they do. That's who they represent, and they do it very well. They do it extremely well. Look who got protected during the years of austerity. Exactly the class who, first of all, caused the crash. So let's just put that out there. But also, the class of property, the class of the developers, the class of bankers, the class of the landlords, that's who got protected. And in terms of the tax, the austerity, it was the cuts in social welfare, the cuts in public services. It was everybody else that suffered. So they do their job superbly. They aren't the problem for the rest of us. Only insofar as they exist at all. The problem for the rest of us is we're losing.
Yeah.
And we're losing spectacularly. We're not just losing a little bit. We're not just kind of 1 goal down with 5 minutes to go and you never know what might happen, lads. We might pull this out of the bag. Yeah. We're getting hammered. The working class, if you can call it that, and I understand the point Martin makes about the class system in Ireland, you can't measure the way they do in the UK. But I just use that term, that kind of lazy terminology almost. People know what I'm talking about. People first of all, who exist on their wages if they're lucky enough to have one.
Yes.
People who can't go back into their savings and all that sort of stuff. People living week to week. People like that.
Portfolio.
People like that are getting battered. They're not just losing, they're getting battered. And we need to talk about this. And this is the thing, doing things like this is great because we need to talk, I think, intergenerationally. And that's where the big breakdown is. I've got a 20-year-old daughter. And, she's kind of, she's between education and work at the moment and she's trying to figure things out. She's got a boyfriend, lovely young fella, and you kind of talk to her and I think I'm a kind of a bit of a reg, I kind of watch this stuff, I read this stuff. You can't go on a car drive up to see our granny without me putting on the radio and listening to this stuff.
A bit of a red. Yeah.
So you would, just a bit.
Yes, comrade.
Just a tad. So you would expect, but a couple of weeks ago, I was down in Athlone and we went for I went for a beer and she bought me a beer, which was great. Your daughter buys you your first beer, that's great. But
Jeez, I'm still waiting.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great feeling. It hasn't been one since, by the way. But you end up thinking, the things that we had growing up. Once you kind of got a job, kind of any job, you could start saving, get a mortgage, get a house, or you got a local authority house. I grew up in a house in Dundalk built by a local authority, and the younger generation kind of I almost don't believe or don't understand that happened. That alternative was there, could still be there, could be recreated, and could work. And they've no chance of a house.
The difference is, the stark difference is, and I wrote about this and we spoke about it before, Martin, is about I call it the death of the American dream, and how in America they came clean on it a couple of years ago and said, oh, this is the first generation 25 to 35 year olds that are worse off than their parents were at the same age. We're now waking up to that reality in Ireland now, whereby we've denuded people. That there was a statistic, I think it was that, between 25 and 35, 10 years ago, you were 30% of that population were either buying houses. No, sorry, it was more than 30%. It was close. It was over 60% were buying houses, and only 40% were in the rental market. It's now 80% in the rental market, and less than 20% are actually getting
living at home with their mans.
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
So it's a delusion of living standards under the guise of austerity to save the economy.
Well, actually, what you're saying about age, I see more in age. I see that those who were what we'll call comfortably in their 40s, 50s, they're the people who got protected.
Yeah.
All across the board. And unions absolutely fucking gutted younger people. Gutted them, hung them out to fucking dry. Did teachers, I mean, it's just utterly fucking outrageous. Outrageous. There's a tyranny of age going on as well. Okay, Varadkar's up there and he's their young go-getter figure, but he's not the guy making the decisions.
Well, if the young people in this country think Leo Varadkar's their saviour, they need to have a wake-up moment soon.
For fuck's sake. But it's old civil servants in rooms making these decisions. The governments come and governments go. It's the permanent government, and they're old farts, and they've no problem selling out the younger people.
Well, I'm not going to allow your jibe at the unions go without agreeing with you. Yeah, look at. I'm a trade unionist. A lot of what I do in my own time, but I'm a trade unionist. I'm proud to be so. I think organised work with labour is essential. But it is a fact. The Irish trade union movement is unique, I think, in trade union movements that I kind of know in Europe or even beyond. Even the States, they're more radical than us. Us collectively, that is. The Irish trade union movement's response, for example, to the crash in 2008 was non-existent. It did nothing except roll over and wave a white flag.
They rolled over long before 2008.
Well, yeah, but but of course they did. There's many moments in time that you could choose. I always trace it back to 87 and when they entered into social
I completely agree.
So they had gone through that 87, 80s, 90s, noughties. So, they had done nothing except sit down in government buildings, trading pretty low pay increases, for tax cuts basically, and industrial peace on their part, so-called industrial peace. And they delivered that. And I think I wrote a book in 2004 where I called the trade union movement not the representative of workers, but the workers' policeman. Because, you didn't used to go into rooms and say to workers, this is how you organise a strike, this is how you stand up. You can't do this, you can't do that. No, we've signed a social partnership agreement, you're not allowed this, and you're not allowed that, and you've got this, and you've got 30 years of that. Left the movement
gelded,
completely unprepared, impotent, gelded, use whatever phrase. So when the crash happened, they literally, now people kind of, what are you talking about? They literally got kicked out of government buildings, literally. Guys, it's over now. Bye. Don't need you anymore. And we're standing around in the street, kind of, what's just happened? We thought these were our partners. We thought the government and the employers and all that were. And they're standing around the street. Now, you can react to that in one of two ways. First way is, we got done, so we better get angry and fight back. Right? That's the way I think. I'd like to think a lot of people maybe listening to this would respond. Or you can respond and say, okay, we're after having a fall out there now, we better try to get back in. And they've been trying to get back in ever since.
So what you read the Anarchist Playbook, okay, and you talk about proper disruptors and how, because that's really what's you're a disruptor.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
I'm
disruptor.
I'm a moderate centrist.
But
calling me a disruptor is a commentary on just how placid the
Irish have become. But that's my point. We've just actually you've hit upon it there, because that was my point. My point is the disruptors actually is where, if you want to influence change, it doesn't come through by holding hands and everybody just let's all go along with the flow. That's not where it comes from. You have to instigate it, and you have to actually argue it out and debate it. You know, so when they were left with that scenario and they're not able to look into it, and they've forgotten that their role was actually to agitate as well and create those sort of things, they've lost that skill base, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense, because there was a generation of trade unionists who had, like, the 30 years is a long time.
Yeah.
There was a generation of trade unionists who didn't know how to run a strike, who didn't know how to talk to workers about fight back, who they had lost the streets. One thing they did do is they called a demonstration, I think it was 2009, in O'Connell Street. I was there that day. And the stage was there and the whole lot, and people turned out in droves because people were really, really angry. But they were really, really angry at the people on the top of the stage.
Yeah.
And, you know, there was heckling and there was booing and there was all that going on. Now, and the reaction, and I don't want to single people out. I hope people at this stage who listen to me from time to time. No, I won't. I hope people at this stage who listen to me from time to time will know that even though I might say things that people think are controversial, I try not to target individuals. I just don't like that. But there are one or two exceptions. We'll get to them later. So, Joe Morton might be one. So, they got hurt.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, why are these people who didn't cause the crash, who are down there on the streets in front of us, angry that they're being made pay for the loss of sovereignty and everything that's going on around us?
More importantly, why are they angry at us?
Why are they angry at us? We need to find out why they're angry at us, and we need to reconnect. Instead of doing that, they're retrenched. They went behind closed doors, accepted that they had lost the streets, and kind of haven't come out since. Now, they're trying to make a bit of a recovery now, but...
Where unions really fucked up with the partnership agreement, they stopped going after Greenfield members. They stopped getting out there. They stopped recruiting. They didn't need to, because they were already sitting at the table. They didn't need to make issues because they were already sitting at the table. I stood at a conference in 2000. I said, if you don't get out...
What union?
I'm not going to fucking tell you.
We'll Google it and find out anyway.
I stood at it was the communication workers.
Right,
union.
okay.
And I stood and I told them, if you don't get out and start recruiting members, you're going to get smaller and smaller and smaller as a movement. Now, where are they? Fucking lowest membership they've had in eons.
Well, all unions.
That's across the globe. Like, even, I think the union membership is down to 6%.
Yeah, but the link between middle class wealth and union membership, the graph is the exact same. They follow each other. As union membership fell off, so did middle class wealth. So you could, all the people in Ireland who are voting Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, and a huge amount of them are civil servants, public servants who are working for the state. And they're literally cutting their own throats by voting Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael. They are screwing themselves, but you can't convince them because they're in that system. They think they have a union voice. They don't realise that they are outside the door for the majority of stuff. And they are outside the door.
While the trade unions are a problem, they're also the solution. And I want to be very careful about that, because we have to have an honest analysis of what the problems are, and that's great. And we need to do that, and we are doing that. It is also true, no matter what happened in social partnership, no matter how impotent their reaction, the movement's reaction to the crash, no matter how dramatic the fall off in membership in the public sector and the almost complete failure to recruit in the private sector. Regardless of all of that, the simple truth is this: there is no answer other than people coming together. There is no answer. The individualisation of society is what has caused the greatest wealth gap we've seen since slavery. People thinking in silos, working as individuals, so if you bring that collectivism, that idea that together stronger into the workplace, and hopefully we're trying to develop it in the communities as well, but in the workplace, then you're talking about trade union organising of one form or another. Now, we don't have a record in Ireland. We just don't, historically. You can go right back to independence. Since the Dublin lockout, I'd say, we don't have a record of having a radical trade union movement. No. We just don't. Well, I'm going to say this now. We better fucking get one soon. Because if we don't get one soon, not only is the trade union movement finished, And some people out there who are struggling to put a roof over their heads, or struggling for work, or on precarious work, or are low paid, or whatever, and might be angry with the trade union movement, justifiably so, might think we're good enough for them. No, that's not good enough for them. Because that's going to fuck people over even more.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm probably the angriest person in Ireland at the union. Probably.
Well, I don't.
I am. No.
I've met a few now.
No, I am really. No, and genuinely, because they fucked me over, and they're fucking so many people over. So I'm genuinely angry.
Well, I've never fucked anyone over.
Now, I believe, like you, that the way forward is trade unions.
Mm.
And I believe that trade unions are extremely important. Unless we get workers into them, there's no voice for workers. But trade unions, as you're doing with Apollo House and with other issues, they need to step outside of where they are. Trade union was getting Greenfield members in. You're not going to do that if you don't get out with people who aren't trade union members.
Mm. We talked about, we had Sinead Mercier on from the Green Party a few weeks ago, and she was part of Occupy in the UK, in the City of London, economics and that. And she talked about, consensus building organisations where you can get out from a grassroots level. Mm. Whether it's a union structure or you want to look at something like that, there has to be something that awakens other, not just people in particular silos that get out of their silos, but actually you said the word community earlier. It's even more important now that we actually show that on a community basis, that it's grassroots up, not top down, because top down, we're not going to change anything in this country. It's very clear that what's actually happened, and I think I said this yesterday, the report that came out that showed the multinationals have paid 6% less tax since the start of the global financial crisis, and individuals are paying 8% more. That's actually your wealth gap there, folks. That's your widening of the inequality. What you need to tackle then is actually make more people aware of that, and how you do that is maybe on grassroots levels, is actually having community activist groups getting out, informing people, using platforms like this, social media, whatever the vehicle is. You guys had right to change. You guys had momentum. You guys had 100,000 people out in the streets, Well, I think RTE said about 4,000 or 5,000, but we won't get into that.
I won't say anything about RTE for legal reasons. Go on.
Allegedly. We have a little sign here, folks, on the wall that says allegedly.
Well, we're throwing darts at a particular.
But that also,
yeah.
That also brings us on a bit in that trade unions have traditionally worked with Labour. And the biggest trade unions have traditionally. You are no big fan of Labour.
You're talking about the Irish Labour Party?
Yeah.
Well, that's an understatement.
I know.
Well, first of all, in terms of right to water, I suppose was happened in 2000, started in 2014, and that was 6 years into austerity. So it took us a long time to get angry. Mm. Well, we were angry, but it took us a long time to mobilise that anger. Collectively, the people out there. Water was an issue that really got people angry. And then out of water, and Occupy as well. Like, Occupy was a protest. Yeah. Very, very necessary and good protest. But making that step from protest into protest on an issue, or even a range of issues, into something long-lasting that makes real deliverable political change is a huge step. Mm. So it's hard to get people to protest, but even if you achieve that, taking it to the next level is kind of where we are at the moment. Mm. And to be honest with you, and it's the people out there who are going to have to get to do this. Nobody can do it for you. Struggling a bit to move it on to that next level. And one of the reasons why we're struggling, not to avoid your point, Martin, because I kind of like it. There's so many distractions. And the Labour Party are a fucking distraction. They're nothing else, by the way. If anybody thinks they're the solution, they want to get a history book out and read it. They're part of the problem. They were founded by Connolly in particular, O'Brien, and they weren't founded with the idea that there would be anything other than the political arm of a workers' movement.
That's right.
And they were founded on the explicit basis that they weren't to go into coalition with the parties of, we call it the establishment for lazy language. Fine Gael. What's a merge at Fine Gael?
Yeah.
Every single time. There wasn't even once they didn't do it. Every single time Labour got an opportunity to go into coalition.
Oh, they dropped the knickers and they went.
Into coalition, they went. And every single time they went into coalition, the trade union movement, because...
Hang on, don't take that metaphor any further.
I'm not responding to it. The trade union movement, please note, listeners, I'm not responding to it. The trade union movement become placid. Labour are in government now.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what they're doing. Promised if we got into government we would implement water charges. 10 days later we're implementing them. The trade union movement goes silent. Lone parents announces. What's the biggest contributor
to the
homelessness emergency?
Yeah.
The cuts delivered by a Labour minister, the leader of the party, Joan Burton, to lone parents.
And by a woman to the majority, 98% of lone parents are women.
And what she kept saying, and still keeps saying, is that we maintained core social welfare rates.
A lie.
And that lie, every time she says it, just hammers another nail into their coffin. Now, we've disagreed on this all along.
Disagree.
And we disagree because
you too.
Yeah, we disagree because I always think, well, Labour has existed, has a network, has capabilities, much in it. But Brendan, you just said the same thing about the unions. They lost their way for 30 years and they still have a role to play.
No, I didn't say the same thing.
You said 30 years they denuded their own.
No, I'm on him on this. I didn't say
I know you're with him.
I didn't say the same thing. Labour, then the trade unions lost their way. Labour never had a way to lose. They never did anything different.
But at the same time, Labour have, if you want to organise and get a network going, they do have...
Okay, I'm going to tell you the difference.
They do have what?
Structures.
What have they?
They have people and activists and people on the ground. There's several of them.
Several?
Yeah.
we need a few more than several.
I'll tell you one thing, Brendan. There's several more than what we have if you put together a coalition of actual people who really want it.
They're not. No, that's why I said they're a distraction. The fact that we've got someone who is as concerned as you are about...
I'm loving this, by the way.
About the wealth divide in this country and about young people in particular.
Yeah.
I know you've got kids and that, I've seen the pets. The fact that you're as concerned as you are, and you're even talking about the Labour Party, after 100 years of miserable failure, the most miserable failure of any Labour movement in Europe, they've delivered nothing.
Now.
Ever. And the fact that you are talking about them as having the potential to in any way do anything for anybody other than get themselves in ministers' cars and pensions is a distraction. A complete and utter distraction.
Listen, Martin wants in here. Go.
Okay. I'm with you. Labour are worse failures.
I'm more angry with them than I am with Fine Gael.
Oh, me too, because you know what you're getting with Fine Gael.
I expect Fine Gael to look after their class.
Absolutely.
I don't expect Labour to look after Fine Gael's class.
Absolutely.
And that's what they do.
It's what they always do, but it's the same voters who are voting Fine Gael that are voting Labour.
Well, that's the transfer problem I have as well, is the transfer problem. Last election cycle, Noel Rock was bouncing along the bottom, but got John Lyons transfers so the Labour transfers went to Fine Gael and he got elected.
They are, though, look, the difference between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael is a cigarette paper. The difference between Fine Gael and Labour is half that.
Why would Fine Gael voters not transfer to Labour?
Now, why did Labour voters transfer to Fine Gael?
It's perfectly obvious. They're the same.
But I don't know if the voters can't understand that.
They do. Of course they do. The civil servants. Of course they do. What they say is Fine Gael are hard-hearted bastards. They're going to gut the poorest. But I'll assuage my conscience slightly by voting for Labour and put them in coalition together. And that's what happens. Labour needs to be gone. The same as Fianna Fáil needed to be gone. Fianna Fáil fucked this country from a height. And the fact that they're still sitting in the Dáil is amazing. Just, it shows we are thick Irish fucking baddies.
There are, insofar as there's any left, there are some good people in the Labour Party, no doubt about that, right? The point I'm making is that, and it's not a personal point, if we want to deliver a real alternative, whatever shape that takes, be that a radical alternative. I personally don't think that a radical alternative and a real radical alternative will work in Ireland. So even if we want to deliver a centre-left alternative, if you wanted to deliver that, we're going to have to move beyond wasting our time and our energies, directing them towards ignoring the behaviour of Labour when they're in government, and then, when they're not in government, like now, marching around the town with them, trying to get them back in there, as if we don't know what they're going to do when they get back in there.
Yeah.
Because if we haven't learned in 100 years what they're going to do when they get back in there, just turn off the lights and head to the airport and get out of here. We know exactly what they're going to do. We know exactly what they're going to do. And by the way, when we talk about the years of austerity, we talk about Fine Gael, and I kind of bounce off Fine Gael quite a bit. The worst policies were carried out by Labour ministers.
Yeah.
Brendan Howlin was the Minister for Public Expenditure. He literally had his hand on the purse strings. Literally.
I had this...
And he's the leader of the Labour Party now. Joan Burton, we've just discussed.
Alan
Kelly, Minister for Water and Homelessness.
Yeah. No.
I'll give you an example. I said this about Labour. You would never have gotten the single parents cuts through had that just been Fine Gael on their own.
No, we'd done massive. We'd been on the streets in our tens of thousands.
Because,
and then the trade union movement would have done it.
Because it would have been men trying to do it too. But they so cleverly, and Labour let themselves
Labour.
Women. It was Joanna Tuffy. We had Joan Burton coming out.
But hang on, Martin,
it was all women.
Martin, Fine Gael, what they did, and this is again going back to the strength of Fine Gael, they took Labour's Tesco list of what they weren't going to do, and they said, you're going to do every fucking one of those things.
Humiliated them.
Yeah, they did. They really humiliated them.
But they allowed themselves to be humiliated.
I'm not denying that, but what I'm saying is they actually didn't just do that. They said specifically the things that you campaiged against. We're going to give you the remit to implement.
I won't name names. I was at an event about a year ago. It was actually a couple of pints in the Long Hall bar. It was kind of a trade union thing. It was after a training thing, and there were some people there from the Labour Party who I won't name, but involved in the national executive and that kind of thing. And we ended up having a discussion. Now, it was a good discussion. It wasn't a row or anything like that, And the discussion went on for a while. People went out, had a smoke and a little bit outside and, more inside. And what struck me about them a year ago, post-election, wasn't just that what they had done in government was so horrendous. What struck me about them was they were the ones who were hurt.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
They were hurt because the public, and they kind of blamed fucking the right to water unions or whoever you want, but the public didn't appreciate enough.
That's right.
The job that they had done in government from 2000. And I kind of says, if you have to start from a position of mea culpa. You have to start from a position of putting your hand up, saying we completely fucked up. We have to completely reform everything. There should be heads on plates. There should be resignations. There should be rewriting of rules. There should be... Oh, no, none of that. Oh, well, why do people not appreciate what we do? People appreciate it, all right. They're sleeping on the fucking streets appreciating it.
Well, the problem with...
The three of us were nodding when you were talking there, because we all agree with you there. We agree 100%.
And more importantly, Martin, that attitude still pervades. When I talk to them, they still say... They still maintain the lie that we maintain core benefits. We prevented the worst excesses of Fine Gael. They hang on, and then the guy who wrote that script, the guy who wrote that script to defend everything, has gone off to be special advisor to Pascal Donoghue now, Mr. Brophy himself. But there you go. But that was like literally, he was the guy who wrote the script for Joan to defend what they did.
Well, I know Ed, by the way. I know Ed for years. I know Ed come back to when I worked in the ESP group of unions.
Ed listens.
Yeah, Ed listens.
Hi, Ed loves me. Ed loves me. Ed did a bit of work at the time for one of the Spanish companies that was dealing with it. And good, very, very capable guy. But in terms of that move, wasn't much of a move.
No.
I kind of call it like it's like moving from the reserves of a team into the first team.
I call it nature taking its course.
So, and Ed wasn't involved in that conversation in the long haul, by the way, just to be clear. I have discussed these things with him in the past when I was in ESB. Having said all of that now, where is the future then?
Yeah.
I'm 50. Not 30, which isn't great, but not 70 either.
Mm.
And I've kind of come to the conclusion, I wrote an article, I think it was Christmas Eve, was published in the Sunday Business Post about the political landscape at the moment. And
I read it.
There's a little thing I do with post-its. If there was a camera, I'd do it now, right? If you write the names of all the parties on a post-it, I'm going to any room where people want to discuss politics and put up a board, or it can be a wall. I've done it on windows. So the left of the window is the far left. We call it communism or whatever you have in yourself, right? And the right of the window is the far right, fascism, whatever you're having, right?
Yeah.
And a line down the middle. So ask the audience with each of the parties in turn on a post-it, where on that spectrum, from communism to far-right fascism, and there's a line down the centre, would you push Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil, Labour, Sinn Féin, Social Democrats, the Greens, PBP, Solidarity, Workers' Party, Communist Party, Erigi, name them all. Where would you put them all? And what you invariably end up with, and I've done it dozens of times in different rooms with different audiences, what you invariably end up with is a whole load of post-its congregated in the centre to the far right. A few down the centre. People will debate where you'd put Sinn Féin. Would you put them slightly to the left or slightly to the right or bang on centre? People would have the same debate about the Social Democrats. And then you end up with 5 or 6 pretty close to the left-hand edge. And you've a gaping gap. That's the gap where Labour should have been for 100 years. If they hadn't spent that 100 years jumping to the right. Who was it? Beyonce? To the right. It's supposed to be back to the left. Yeah. So there's a gaping gap there. Now, I do not believe that the Irish electorate are so different than the electorates. There are differences, but that are so different that there isn't an appetite. There's definitely a need for something in that space. But what we have invariably is a very interesting and usually principled and energetic argument among 5 or 6 parties on the kind of way over there on the left. Very small parties. And then a huge congregation of people governing us on the right. Fine Gael, by the way, always say, well, we're not far right. Well, the way to judge that is, well, who's to the right of you?
Renewer.
That's about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. This morning, Leo had up. I'm off to the Brookings Institution to have a speech. Now,
why do you call him Leo? Stick with this. Why do you call him Leo?
Because that's branding.
Is he a buddy? Is he?
Campaign for Leo.
Is he your pal? Is he?
What was it? Courage for Leo.
Why do we do that? I'm not picking on you. But why do we do that? Why is it Enda? Why is it Bertie? These aren't our buddies.
Charlie.
I respect the office, by the way.
Yes, but
I respect the office. He's the Taoiseach, or he's Leo Varadkar. We're brainwashed. Put on the radio. And they're all Leo this, Leo that, Leo our buddy. So who couldn't like Leo?
You're not going to believe.
No, he's not.
But you're not going to believe this. Brian Hayes sat in that chair a couple of weeks ago, right? And Brian explained their strategy, or what he would like to see their strategy.
The presidential model.
Leo is great. Leo ticks all the boxes. We love Leo. Vote for Fine Gael. And that is their strategy. Now,
he's doing it. He's calling him Leo.
Stop pointing at me.
But they never have they been so grouped around one man.
Danger.
Real weakness in a party.
Yeah.
Take him down, you take the party down.
You see, that's the good news. The good news is, for all of what we're talking about, a trade union movement that's not radical enough, a left that hasn't got its act together, a Labour Party that spent its entire history propping up the right, for all of a wealth divide that's the worst we've seen since the days of the masters and servants, a homelessness emergency that's the worst we've seen since the famine. For all of that carnage, the good news is, because there is some good news, the good news is the feet of the establishment are made of clay. The parties who've always ruled us, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, notwithstanding opinion polls that I pay no attention to anyway, are at historic lows in terms of the public support. The last election, which is only a year and a half ago, nearly 2 years ago now, the two of them combined couldn't get 50%. Down about 35% in 2 decades. The other social pillars, if you can call them that propped that kind of establishment up, the church, if there's anybody under 30, and it's their own business, but I kind of I go to mass once a year for fathers' anniversaries, things like that. There's no young people there. Young people just aren't listening or relating with that anymore. The odd one, but very, very little. And then there's a huge need. And sooner or later, we have to believe, through education, through discussions, that the youth, and I talk about the youth, I'm not about anybody under 30, will wake up and realise that unless they get angry and they get motivated about getting involved in their communities and working together for a real alternative, that they're the ones who will ultimately suffer. And so there's this huge space there. There's a huge need there. The establishment parties are in historic decline. Might seem very powerful, but they're in historic decline. And there is an opportunity there. But I kind of look at this, we're only 100 years old. And when I've got my optimistic head on, which doesn't happen very often, I'll have it on today, that's a very short time in a nation's development. So we're only 100 years old, and I look at that as the first year of our apprenticeship as a nation. We've just done the first year of apprenticeship as a nation, and we failed our first year exams. We lost economic sovereignty, we've created social carnage, it's all a mess, but it's only the first year. And I think rather than be bitter about it, we can all, together as citizens, learn from that. We gave too much respect in that 100 years to the church. We were lectured, we were abused, we were talked down to. We didn't get that it needed to be about more than changing a British oppressor for an Irish oppressor. We didn't get that.
Yeah.
So now that we've got it, and now that we're suffering from that, the opportunity is there to learn, and we have to be optimistic about it.
Well, I think it has to get worse. I think there has to be more people affected. There's too many people too comfortable. That's why nothing changes. Yes, there is. There is a group of people.
I don't meet them.
But they are there and nothing changed for them. Nothing particularly changed for them. They're comfortable. They were always comfortable. They're always going to be comfortable. But the group of people who can actually change stuff have been hammered, and they're busy trying to pay bills. They're busy trying to feed their kids. They're busy monkeys. And you keep the monkeys busy and they don't get political.
We have a 25 to 35-year-old demographic right now that is getting kicked around in terms of work practices, security, all of those, health, all of education that's supplied to their children, any opportunities you want to try to get finance, forget about it. All of these things, denied all of these things that were done. They do need to be reached, but and we said this before, and it's quite a scary prospect, but it's actually where you want to be optimistic. If Macron can build a party in 2 years, okay, albeit a neoliberal party.
The wrong party.
But nonetheless, if it can happen in France.
Look, in Italy it's out to happen.
Yeah. And they were pure disruptors.
The fascists, but anyway.
No, but like even the what's the populist party, the internet-based guys that were like, oh, well, we don't want to deal with this. We want to use online social media.
We have to believe, Martin, you know. You have to believe it can happen. Otherwise, what's the point?
I believe it can happen. And I'm going to give you a little thing to say. I have a 20-year-old daughter like you have a 20-year-old, and she's the same. College, work, busting her ass. Yeah. So I'm dropping her on the way in here today, and she's chatting in the morning, chat. And she's telling me, about how she's going to emigrate to Canada when she's finished college because there is nothing for her here. That's the 20-year-old. A guy I went to school with, and I was telling Tony this during the week, Phil, and R.I.P. Phil. Phil gets buried today, and Phil was a lad I went to school with, 50, same as you and me, 50 years of age. Phil committed suicide this week. That's Ireland for me.
Mm.
You either get out, or this place kills you.
Mm.
One or the other.
Yeah, and I often think of my own children and their future. And like, I kind of wish in a way that Dara, her name's Dara, that she'd get on a plane and go away for her sake. Obviously, you don't want to lose your kids.
Yeah.
But for her sake, when you look at the future, you kind of hope almost that she'll do that. But, as I said, you're only 50. That's old, but it's not that old. You have a lot of energy left. We all have a lot of energy left, and we have a responsibility, I think. I have a job, but it's not the great job people think it is, but it's an okay job. I've got a roof over my head. I've got a car outside the door there. I've got a phone in my pocket. I'll get a holiday. I'll get to see a match. I can go and have a pint if I want it. I don't have any assets or any property, but I'm okay. And hopefully, having worked in various public sectors, Britain and Ireland, hopefully by the time I retire, there'll be a pension there that'll keep me out of poverty. Hopefully. So I'll kind of be okay. Just okay now, but okay all the same. And okay is a lot better than a lot of people. So, but I think we have a responsibility. Because we actually know, people our age, we actually know that there used to be a different way. Mm-hmm. We actually know that local authorities, for example, used to build houses. Mm. I grew up in a house. It's still standing there. It's better than the house I live in now. Right? I grew up in a 3-bedroom house with 8 children and a father, single income household. And I know that there is a world, and can be a world, where a single income can support a family of 8. Now, I'm not suggesting people, go out there, but that happened, and I grew up in that. And the house next door had 7, and the house next door had 9, and there was hundreds of us in the street. And we had, sometimes we had holes in our shoes, and sometimes we didn't have an arse in our trousers, but we had fun, and it was great. And I go to the Dundalk matches now, and I meet all them lads, and they're all the same age as me now, and it's kind of coming together, and we kind of still as if we're kids in a way. So there is a different way, and it's not radical, really. So that's why, I don't take any offence, Tony, that's why when you say you're a red, or you're a this, or you're that, I take that not as a commentary on me. Hmm. I take that as a commentary on Ireland. Because if wanting a house, if wanting a roof over your head, if wanting a reasonably paid job, wanting to have security in your retirement, wanting to stay out of poverty, and wanting your kids to have a future is radical. Because I settle for all that. Mm. Right? I don't want any more than that, really. Paul, I know Paul was in here yesterday. Paul probably wants more than that. And if more came, I'd be happy too. But I live without it. If I just got that, if Ireland just had that, I'd kind of be happy enough. Mm. My kids are the future, where they could get married, have kids, have a roof over their heads. I'd be happy with that. They haven't got that now. No. So what's radical about that? That's not radical. That's human. Right? And a nation that denies it. Well, if that's human, what's a nation that denies that? What's a nation that's denying its youth a home, or a job, or security, or the ability to have and rear children, or healthcare if they're sick and you don't have any money? What? Is it subhuman, is it? Yeah. Is that too strong? Or does that make me sound like a radical? Or maybe it's Ireland that's radical. Maybe Ireland's radically right. Maybe we're led by the far right. Maybe I'm in the centre.
And now you're in mine. Now you're talking like I talk.
Yeah, maybe
I am in the centre.
Yeah, maybe Ireland is far right.
No, there's no question that the centre was dragged years ago to the right. There's no question of that. Your ambitions are actually, you're absolutely right. These are just the basics of life, which comes back to what we continually say. Here's my pitch to you. Where's you've got your principles there. You've got your pillars of what a fair society looks like in terms of, a future, a roof over your head, good healthcare, education, simple things, really basics, the basics that you can, you can, one income household can afford a mortgage if the house was built at an affordable rate. Brendan, 2 kilometres up there are houses built for €151,000. The O'Coolan Cooperative did it, okay? So it's doable. We just don't have a government that wants to do that because they'd rather pay $361,000 to developers and call that affordable housing. But my pitch back at you is, you have the organisational skills. You have the ability to get people together and actually like it or lump it. You were seen as a fulcrum that somebody may turn on. What are we going to do next? Where's this? Is there going to be a movement from it? Is there going to be a coalition from it?
Well, thanks for saying those things. Whether I am or whether I'm not, I'm not sure, to be honest. Look, the right to change principles. And the right to change is nothing other than a yellow book with 10 principles, and you've listed most of them there. That are things that people listening to this need, that this society needs. They're nothing more than that. But it's a book. Some people say, what is right to change? It's a yellow book with 10 ideas in it. And that's all they are. So what we've done in terms of the unions facilitating, I'll put my union hat on for the moment because I'll have to take it off in a minute now. But what we've done with the unions is we've tried to bring the forces that came together in the water charges movement, basically. Huge community activism and energy and mobilisation. We've tried to align that with the more progressive elements of the political parties and independents and people who want the things we want. And some trade union facilitation. And in election 2016, 106 of the just over 500 candidates who ran endorsed those 10 policy principles. So we didn't endorse them; they endorsed the principles. That's a very important distinction. And about a fifth of them as well got elected. So about a fifth of the current Dáil have endorsed those principles. Now, 22, I think, of them are Sinn Féin. So, we haven't seen to date, and we had a conference in the Mansion House last November, we haven't seen the required coming together, the required alignment of the political forces to work together. We've seen Sinn Féin, and that's their own business. I'm not making a judgment on it. I'm just commenting on it as a fact. We've seen Sinn Féin opening themselves up to potential coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. To me, that's not building an alternative. That's opening yourself up to upholstering the same. You can't be the same and an alternative at the same time. You're one or the other. And on the other side, we have seen no realignment of the left. The parties are small. It's a fact. It's just a fact. The bigger electoral parties, PVP and Solidarity, AAA as they were then called, went into election 2016 with 5 MPs. There was 3 years of the biggest mass protests on any issue the country had ever seen, and they came out with 6.
Yeah, they got 1 more.
That's why I say, regardless of the fact that they're highly principled, capable, good people in there, I don't think the appetite is in Ireland for that kind of thing, that extent of radicalism. So we've tried to bring it together. Up to now, it hasn't worked. I have to say, in terms of the communities as well, because people in the communities, we think in silos. I live in a community. I'm a community activist. I'm a trade unionist. I'm not in politics as such, but I have political views. So we can't think of, well, you're this, we're all different. We're not, we're the same. But the energy that was in the community groups around Right to Water and the water charges movement, some of it's still there, but a lot of it's gone. And it's not gone because those communities have suddenly started to benefit from the recovery. I don't know why it's gone. Is it education in terms of, or have we not got the forum to have this ongoing discussion, which is why podcasts like this are very important, where you're not getting shut down or ganged up on by...
Or they have to have fake balance, where you have someone to shout something...
I usually, when I'm doing an RTE interview, I usually look at my watch when I'm asked a question, and I usually time how long it takes before I'm interrupted, and it's always the presenter that interrupts me. And it's usually 30 to 40 seconds. And you know, that's so you can't have a proper discussion. So we need more of this. Personally now, and this is not a Unite position, because Unite are not affiliated to any political party. They disaffiliated from Irish Labour in 2013 and won't be reaffiliating, I believe. Personally, I've come to the conclusion, based on Sinn Féin being open to coalition, and based on the left not getting its act together, and actually now campaigning with Labour on homelessness, by the way, which I think is an absolute joke. But anyway, you don't have to talk if you don't want. It's a joke. I think a party should emerge. That's why I wrote that article. I think it will have to come from the ground up. I think the policy principles are clear. The right to change policy principles are clear. I think it will have to emphatically rule out coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, because it's either going to be an alternative or it's not. And if you're open to coalition with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, then you can't present yourself as an alternative. And I think the separation of church and state is a big issue. I think it's a really big issue. In terms of how the church influences, you know, our healthcare system, our education system, how the whole country is run. And if you even read our constitution, you know, it's like reading a religious document sometimes, you know. So I think there are issues there. And I think, you know, so I think that's the path. Now, is there an appetite? I think there's a need for that.
There is an appetite.
Is that I haven't found it.
Well, if there isn't an appetite, then why do we get listeners? Why does this get?
There's a vacuum. There's a space.
We
talk into the space, and we talk into the space. That's what we do. We talk into the space. I don't think there's a party that can. And if somebody's asked me this, I said, no, I don't think there's a party that fits into that space.
No, I do not know.
There's a movement that fits into the space that could encompass anybody. But there is no party. We have no party set up that fits into that space. And you know, because you've an opinion on politics, you're involved in politics. To break through in politics in Ireland is extremely difficult. As an individual, as a party, practically impossible. And when people give out about solidarity, PPP...
I'm not giving it about that.
I didn't say, but when people do, they actually achieved a huge thing. They achieved a huge thing. Even to get to 5 seats, to go from 5 seats to 6 seats, we'll call them radical left. I don't think they're radical left. I think that's a huge achievement. I think that's a huge achievement in where we are, in Irish politics. That's a big achievement.
But it's a long way from government.
But
it is.
And more importantly, it's not even that part. It's going from, can you marry that 6 to 22 that are in this, say, more centre left, if we want to go use the terminology. Can you, because are they going to say, no, we won't compromise. This 6 won't compromise. Because and it comes to that, where you actually have to have that, look someone in the eye and say, you want to turn the system on its head. You want to flip it a full 180 degrees. Can we not move with 15 degrees every couple of years, folks?
Well, to come back to Brandon's line, if you really want to change the hegemony that exists in Ireland, if you want to change the Fianna Fáil, the Fine Gael, the Labour, you have to redraw the line. And you have to redraw the line there with Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Labour, that side, and everybody else the other side, because the numbers don't work any other way.
Well, the Social Democrats interest me now. They interest me more since Stephen Donnelly found his natural home. Capable guy, by the way.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think he's in the right place now. And I don't know, he obviously wouldn't disagree with that, or else he wouldn't be there. I think if the Social Democrats, I hate the name, but I think if really good people, you know, and have a lot of admiration for Roisin and Catherine, I think if they had a clear position, like, who am I going to vote for in the next election, for example? Well, I'd vote for, I'm living in Swords now, so I'd vote for Clare Daly as an independent. If I was living in a constituency where there was no decent independent, what party could I vote for? I can't vote for a party in all conscience that I think is going to prop up Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. I voted Sinn Féin in the last election for the first time in my life. I voted for Paul Donnelly. I was living in Dublin West at that stage. And like Paul, really good guy, didn't make it. But I voted for Paul for those reasons, but also because I didn't see Sinn Féin in that situation. And I found it difficult to vote for Sinn Féin for historic reasons, but I didn't see them as a party that was going to prop up the right. I cannot vote for Sinn Féin now. Not because of any decision or change that I've made, because of a decision or change that they made at their convention last year. You know, could I vote for the Social Democrats if they had a candidate in my constituency? If I knew that if they got 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 elected, that they weren't going to prop up a Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael one, I probably could. As I say, I hate the name. I wish to change the bloody name now. Right? But anyway, really good people in there. But if they're not ruling out coalition with Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael, I can't vote for them. So then if you swing over to those who do rule it out, could I vote for Solidarity? Well, Solidarity don't even agree with the right to change principles.
They're not radical enough.
The Good Friday Agreement is an issue for them. And that's their own business, by the way. They just don't. They didn't endorse the right to change principles. So I believe in it. I won't be voting for that. I won't be voting for them. And they're not a party. I want to vote for something. This is what I said in the Sunday Business Post. I want to see in my lifetime, that could be 20 years, 30 years, who knows? I want to see in my lifetime the first non-Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael-led government in the state. I don't think that'll happen in the next election. But I think it better start now. And you know what? I often think of Dick Spring in the 1990s when I came back from England. And Dick Spring was in and he was out, and you know there was all sorts of things going on with rainbows and
Yeah.
you know. And I often think then, I wish someone then, some trade unionist, some collective of individuals, some independents, I wish someone in the mid-1990s or the early 90s had come together and formed this rights-based, non-Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael party and got 1 seat or a council seat. Because if they had started then, by the time the crash came in 2008 and 2009, when the people were crying out for an alternative, maybe it would have been there then.
Yeah.
So if our role, and you're 50 now, Martin, right? If our role is no more, if it's going to be as limited as this, to just starting it for future generations to take on.
I know, but
that's better than nothing.
I'm
isn't
thinking
it?
about what party did come out in the 1990s, and I'm thinking, because this is Ireland on its head.
Go on, remind me. I'm dreading this. Who was
What
it?
party did come out?
The PDs.
Progressive Democrats. So when we needed left, what did we get?
Interest rates were over 20%. Yeah. I was walking into the train station. People won't believe this if they're younger listening to this. I was walking into the train station in the dark at the time after coming home from England, sweeping platforms and things, checking tickets and that sort of stuff. And I was living back with my ma because I come home from England, but the lads I was working with, young married men, had homes and the whole lot. Interest rates were 24, 25, 26%. Lads were cutting each other's throats to work on a Sunday for an hour's overtime and whatever. You know, it was, people were going, and what was the Irish response? We'll set up a far right party.
Yeah.
I'll fix it. But if you're listening to this at home and you're our age, could even 100 of us just come together and say, you know what, we're going to start it now.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't come together for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and if it's future generations, then because there'll be another crash, there'll be another troika.
Yeah.
It won't have to wait 20 years for it. By the way.
And more importantly, if we don't do it, and this is where I'm getting optimistic. If we don't do it, we had Richard Chambers in here after sitting at the Irish exit thing. They're looking to get organised on the far right. You know, no, but that's my point.
No, I know.
They're already sitting in the bloody RDS having a meeting.
Well, Nigel Farage.
Yeah. So if you don't, and people don't step up and do it, into that vacuum comes everything else.
Yeah, and the far right is a danger. The far right are in government in Austria, close to government in Italy. Not too far off in the Netherlands.
They're now the opposition in Germany.
Yeah, a strong opposition in Germany, and of course we've got the Tories propped up by the DUP.
And then in Ireland you have far right opposition in Fianna Fáil and in government.
So we have to be very, very careful. Because if anybody thinks that that's where the future housing is, that that's where the future pension for your children is, that that's where the job security, that that's where the end of zero-hour contract is, by voting for these clowns, if that's what people listening to this think, because they'll wave a flag at you, or they'll sing a bloody song at you, or they'll stick a bit of shamrock or something in your lapel and to start giving you all this, free man of the land nonsense.
Or you could call them on a first name basis, like Leo or Bertie, or you are part of it.
So there has to be an alternative, and I'm saying that as an individual. It's not, and I say that because I have my daytime job, but I do believe that. And I don't believe we change it overnight. I wish someone did it. I wish someone did it in the 1990s. They didn't. Let's start it now and see what happens.
Okay.
Brennan, thank you very much for coming on. We know that you have a lot to do today. An awful lot to do today.
I have to write a blog, by the way.
It's the broadsheet.
Unite for a Real Alternative .blog.
All right, Unite for
a Real Alternative .blog. So it's a trade union blog, and I'll be writing this afternoon about the Brexit negotiations.
Well, very good.
Okay. Well, we hope to have you again in the future. Hopefully you're in that space with some other people. We hope to see something happen with housing again shortly. We know there's been rumours and stuff going on. We don't know the truth. We didn't ask you the truth. We'll wait and see. So hopefully...
Campaign for public housing is the way to go, guys. Stop campaigning with Labour. They caused it. They're not the solution.
Right, folks. Thanks everybody for listening. Again, keep saying it. We rely on you people. Subscribe, leave us a review, tell your friends. You can go on to echochamberpod.com, see all of our back catalogue, some of our blogs. Do throw us the price of a cup of coffee, folks. It keeps the show on the road. Thanks a lot.